Cole learned very early that truly important meetings never came with official invitations. They came with wrong elevator codes, doors that should not exist, and security officers who looked the other way with the practiced boredom of people who did not want to know why. The lift sank beneath the palace long after the public levels ended, the lights dimming as if embarrassed to follow him. Cole checked his reflection in the metal wall, creased uniform, slightly crooked collar, the face of a man who had survived 3 wars and still looked like he had wandered into them by accident. He exhaled slowly. Somewhere above him, banners fluttered and soldiers polished armor. Down here, reality behaved differently. The doors opened into a chamber that was too large for secrecy and too quiet for comfort. Translucent walls shimmered faintly, projecting star maps that shifted with slow, deliberate grace. At the center stood Queen Thessia. She looked human in the way statues look alive if you stare long enough. Tall, composed, her posture precise to the point of intimidation. Only her ears betrayed the truth. Long, elegant, sweeping back slightly from her head, catching the pale light like sculpted marble. Her expression was neutral, which Cole had learned was the most dangerous one. "You're late," she said. Cole glanced at his wrist console, which had stopped displaying time somewhere between floors. "I'd argue that time abandoned me first." A pause, not irritation. Consideration. Thessia inclined her head a fraction. "Your perception of causality remains fascinating. That's what my last commanding officer said before reassigning me to special diplomatic nonsense," Cole replied, stepping forward. "I assume you didn't summon me to discuss my chronic disrespect for schedules." "No." She turned slightly and the star map responded, zooming inward toward a disputed border system. "Another fleet movement. Minor, symbolic, dangerous." Cole squinted. "Your definition of minor involves enough firepower to turn a moon into a cautionary tale." "Yes, but it is not aimed at you. Yet." "Comforting," he said, "in the same way an unpinned grenade is comforting." They stood side by side now, close enough that Cole could feel the faint warmth radiating from her, a subtle biological hum beneath the stillness. He pretended not to notice because noticing things tended to make them complicated. For months, this had been their routine. Secret meetings, shared intelligence, prevented catastrophes that would never make the history books because nothing exploded. Cole supplied human probabilities, panic curves, pride thresholds, how many insults a general could endure before declaring a holy war. Thessia provided alien precision, long-term consequence modeling, and the unsettling habit of watching him as if he were a puzzle that occasionally made jokes. "You're unusually quiet," she said. Cole shrugged. "Just wondering how many laws I'm breaking by standing this close to you." 14, she replied instantly. "Possibly 15, depending on posture." He snorted despite himself. "Good. I'd hate to be inefficient." Her lips twitched. Thessia rarely smiled, but when she did, it felt like a secret being shared with the universe. The tension eased just enough to breathe. As they reviewed troop trajectories and diplomatic signals, Cole felt it again. The pressure behind his thoughts, like standing near a speaker emitting a frequency he couldn't quite hear. It wasn't pain, more like insistence. He rubbed his temple. "You do that often," Thessia observed. "Do what?" "That," she gestured delicately, "as if something is pressing against your mind." Cole hesitated. "Occupational hazard. Humans carry stress like it's a competitive sport." She studied him, her dark eyes intent. "Yet you are the only one who reacts." "Lucky me." The chamber lights shifted subtly, responding to her neural interface. Thessia stepped closer, close enough now that Cole could see the fine, almost invisible patterns along her skin. Not markings, but something deeper, like biology remembering a different environment. "Cole," she said softly, using his name the way she always did when things mattered. "If you perceived danger before it manifested, would you trust it?" He considered that. "Depends. Is it the duck now kind of danger? Or the existential dread that ruins sleep kind?" Another pause, longer this time. "Both," she said. Cole sighed. "Then yes, I'd trust it. I'd probably make a joke first, but I'd trust it." Something shifted in her posture. Satisfaction? Relief? It was hard to tell with alien royalty. Good, Thessia said. Then our meetings are justified. Cole raised an eyebrow. I was under the impression they already were. You know, preventing interstellar war. That is the obvious reason, she replied, not always the true one. The pressure in his mind intensified briefly, then receded, like a wave pulling back from shore. Cole swallowed. You know, he said lightly, most queens I've worked with just wanted treaties. You come with mystery headaches. Your species is remarkably tolerant of discomfort, she said. You disguise it with humor. We call it coping. Silence settled again, not uncomfortable this time. Outside the chamber, unseen machinery hummed, ancient and precise. Above them, millions lived unaware that peace was being negotiated by a tired human advisor and an alien queen with long ears and secrets no one else seemed willing to hear. Thessia turned back to the stars. You should go. The ceremony approaches. Right, Cole said. Public appearances, smiling, not standing in front of weapons. Her gaze lingered on him. Try to avoid dying. I'll do my best, he said. No promises. As the elevator doors closed behind him, Cole felt it once more. A distant, wordless signal brushing the edges of his thoughts. This time, he did not ignore it. He laughed softly to himself. Great, he muttered. Now I'm hallucinating queens. Somewhere deep beneath the palace, Thessia stood alone, listening for a response she feared only one human could hear. Public ceremonies, Cole had decided, were just battles where everyone pretended not to be afraid. He stood exactly where protocol told him to stand, which was nowhere useful. The plaza stretched wide beneath a sky filtered through the palace's atmospheric dome. Sunlight softened to a ceremonial glow that made everything look more expensive than it probably was. Alien soldiers lined the perimeter in perfect symmetry, armor polished to the point of self-admiration. Their weapons were ceremonial too, mostly. Cole had learned the hard way that alien cultures enjoy disguising lethality as tradition. He adjusted his collar again. The uniform still felt wrong on days like this. Too tight in places that suggested dignity. Too loose in places that suggested negligence. Around him, diplomats murmured in layered translations, voices overlapping as personal implants struggled to keep up. Cole listened with half an ear, the other half occupied by a faint, persistent pressure at the back of his skull. Not today, he told his brain. Please, not today. The music began. It wasn't music in the human sense. No rhythm meant for feet, no melody meant for humming. It was harmonic architecture, sound designed to announce importance. The plaza hushed as Queen Thessia emerged. Even from a distance, she commanded the space effortlessly. She moved with deliberate calm, long ears angled slightly back, catching light as she passed beneath the floating banners of her house. The crowd bowed in perfect waves. Cole did not. His role technically allowed him to remain upright, though he suspected that if anyone asked, the official answer would be, "We forgot to tell the human." She took her place on the elevated platform, hands resting lightly at her sides. Her expression was composed, serene, royal. If Cole hadn't spent months watching the subtle shifts in her posture, he might have believed it completely. The pressure in his head sharpened. He frowned, rolling his shoulders. Probably nerves. Probably the crowd. Probably the fact that if something went wrong, his job description would become very short and very terminal. Thessia began to speak. Her voice carried without amplification, a controlled resonance that seemed to settle directly into the chest rather than the ears. The translation lagged by half a breath, just enough to make her sound even more deliberate. She spoke of unity, of vigilance, of peace that required effort rather than celebration. Cole almost smiled. She was careful not to say the word war. Alien politics treated words like loaded weapons. As she continued, Cole's vision flickered, not blurring, not fading, but sharpening too much, as if someone had adjusted contrast settings on reality. He became acutely aware of things he had ignored seconds before. The slight misalignment in a guard's stance near the eastern arch. The way the air shimmered oddly near one of the decorative pylons. The pressure behind his eyes intensifying into something that felt uncomfortably like urgency. He swallowed. Okay, brain. If this is one of your jokes, it's not funny. His hand drifted toward the small diagnostic pad hidden in his sleeve. No alerts, no alarms, no helpful flashing icons that said, "Run now." Thessia paused mid-sentence, just for a fraction of a second. Too short for the crowd to notice. Long enough for Cole to feel it like a punch to the gut. Danger. He didn't know how he knew. He just did. The pressure surged, no longer background noise but a full-body insistence, like standing too close to a reactor core. His humor reflex kicked in automatically. "Well," he muttered under his breath, "this is new." He stepped forward before his conscious mind caught up. Protocol screamed at him not to move, but instinct overruled training with ruthless efficiency. The air near the pylon rippled again, and suddenly he could see it. A distortion, a blade of phase-shifted energy slipping free of the spectrum humans were meant to perceive. Someone screamed, or maybe that was just his implant protesting reality. Cole lunged. There was no heroic calculation, no noble speech. He simply put himself between Thessia and the impossible shape racing toward her. The impact wasn't pain so much as absence, like something trying to remove him from existence and failing out of sheer inconvenience. He felt heat, pressure, a sharp electric wrongness that made every nerve light up in protest. Thessia gasped. The blade dispersed, collapsing into harmless photons as palace countermeasures finally decided to wake up. Alarms erupted. Soldiers surged forward, weapons no longer ceremonial. Cole staggered, barely keeping his feet. His heart hammered like it was trying to escape his chest and file a complaint. "Okay," he breathed. "Definitely not hallucinating." Hands grabbed him, then stopped. Thessia was suddenly there, closer than he remembered moving. Her composure was gone, replaced by something raw and unmistakably afraid. The crowd roared in confusion, shock rippling outward as security drones descended. "Cole," she said, and his name sounded different now, sharper, urgent. "I know," he said weakly. "Terrible timing." She didn't laugh. Instead, she reached up and kissed him. For half a second, Cole's mind helpfully supplied a list of reasons this was a very bad idea. Political fallout, cultural misinterpretation, the high probability of being executed for touching royalty with anything other than his eyes. Then everything else vanished. Warmth flooded him, not physical but internal, spreading through his chest and into his skull. The pressure that had plagued him for months suddenly aligned, snapped into focus, like static resolving into signal. His vision steadied, his breathing slowed. He pulled back just enough to stare at her. "Your Majesty," he whispered, "I feel like this needs an explanation." Her eyes locked onto his, intense, searching. Around them, soldiers froze. Gasps rippled through the plaza. Somewhere, a recording drone captured the moment from an angle that would ruin several careers. "Stay upright," Thessia murmured, too quietly for the translators to catch. "You're in danger." Cole huffed a breathless laugh. "You don't say." She turned to face the crowd, expression already reforming into regal composure, though her hand lingered on his arm for a heartbeat longer than necessary. The warmth remained, steady and strange, like borrowed strength. As the chaos intensified and guards shouted orders, Cole became acutely aware of one undeniable fact. Whatever just happened was not romantic, and everyone was going to think it was. Cole decided, somewhere between being escorted by 6 armed guards and not bleeding to death, that kissing an alien queen ranked very high on the list of things that sounded better in hindsight. The corridor they rushed him through was sterile, bright and aggressively quiet, as if sound itself had been classified. His boots barely touched the floor before the guards halted, their weapons angled with professional uncertainty. No one seemed sure whether he was a hero, a criminal, or a contagious event. "Am I under arrest?" Cole asked. "Or is this the galaxy's worst guided tour?" No one answered. One guard's ear twitched, a subtle alien reflex that suggested discomfort rather than aggression. Cole filed it away. Body language mattered when everyone was pretending not to panic. They deposited him into a containment chamber that felt suspiciously like a medical bay pretending to be an office. Soft lights, smooth walls, a chair that definitely did not trust him. The door sealed with a sound that implied finality. Cole sat, then immediately stood again when the chair emitted a warning tone. "Right," he muttered. "No sudden movements." "Got it." The warmth from the kiss still pulsed through him, steady and unsettling. His thoughts felt sharper, clearer, as if someone had cleaned the inside of his skull with expensive equipment. He could hear distant machinery through walls that should have blocked sound entirely. He could feel attention, not watching, listening. That was new. The door opened without ceremony. Queen Thessia entered alone. She looked unchanged, regal as ever, long ears angled neutrally, expression unreadable. Only Cole noticed the tension beneath her stillness, the way her hands flexed once before settling at her sides. "You should be resting," she said. "So should the galaxy," Cole replied. "Yet here we are." Her lips twitched, quickly suppressed. "You absorbed more than anticipated." "Is that what we're calling it?" He gestured vaguely to his head. "Because my brain feels like it just upgraded its operating system without permission." She stepped closer, studying him with open intensity now. No audience. No need for restraint. "Do you feel pain?" "No. Just aware." He hesitated, and slightly offended that no one told me I could hear subsonic vibration patterns before today. That earned him a genuine pause. "You can?" "Apparently." He shrugged. "If there's a return policy, I'd like to see it." Thessia exhaled slowly. Relief flickered across her features before she masked it. "The pheromones stabilized you." "Ah," Cole nodded. "That clears up absolutely nothing." She moved to a console, fingers dancing across translucent interfaces. Data streams bloomed in the air. Neural readings, biological graphs, alien script that his implant struggled to translate. "The gesture you misinterpret as affection," she said carefully, "is a defensive transfer. It reinforces allies under imminent neurological collapse." Cole blinked. "So you kissed me because my brain was on fire?" "Yes." "Good," he said, "because if that had been flirting, the execution odds would have doubled." A faint sound escaped her before she could stop it. Not quite laughter. Something close. The door hissed again. This time Thessia did not turn. "The council will convene within the hour," she said. "They are displeased." Cole leaned back against the wall. "Let me guess. Public affection, cultural taboo, interstellar scandal, and ritual violation," she added, "in front of soldiers. Soldiers who looked like they just witnessed their religion trip over a chair." Her gaze sharpened. "They were shocked because they did not understand." "Join the club." Silence stretched between them, dense with unspoken consequences. Cole felt the pressure again, gentler now, like a hand resting at the edge of his thoughts. Not intrusive, expectant. "You feel it," Thessia said quietly. He met her eyes. "I think I always have. I just didn't have words for it." She looked away first. "I have been transmitting a distress signal for years," she said. "Not consciously. It is biological, subtle. My people no longer respond to it." Cole frowned. "Compassion fatigue?" "Cultural saturation," she corrected. "Pain normalized into background noise." "And humans?" he asked. She turned back to him. "Humans perceive it emotionally." "Well," he said gently, "that explains the headaches." A chime echoed through the chamber, the council summoning signal. Thessia straightened, the queen returning fully to her posture. "They will demand resolution," she said. "There are only two outcomes they will accept." Cole raised an eyebrow. "I'm guessing neither involves a medal." "Execution," she said calmly. "Or marriage." He stared at her. Once, twice. Then he laughed. It burst out of him, uncontrollable, echoing off the walls until he had to brace himself against the console. "Of course," he wheezed, "because when an alien queen kisses you to save your brain, the only logical response is either death or lifelong commitment." Thessia watched him, expression unreadable. "You are not afraid." "Oh, I'm terrified," Cole said. "I just cope loudly." Her gaze softened, just a fraction. "Whatever they decide," she said, "you will not face it alone." He nodded, the warmth in his chest steady and reassuring in a way that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with survival. "Next time," he said, Maybe warn me before you upgrade my nervous system. She inclined her head. Noted. Outside the chamber, the machinery of politics began to move, and for the first time, Thessia's signal was no longer unanswered. The room they placed Cole in afterward was very polite about being a prison. It had smooth walls that shifted color based on his vital signs, a bed that molded itself to his body with unsettling enthusiasm, and no visible doors. The ceiling projected a calming simulation of a sky that was absolutely not the one outside. Cole lay back, hands folded on his chest, staring upward. Well, he said to no one in particular, if this ends in marriage, I hope the pillows stay. Time passed in a way that felt intentional, not slow enough to be cruel, not fast enough to be kind. The warmth inside his chest remained, a steady pulse that made his thoughts feel organized in a way they never had before. He could feel the palace now, not as a map, but as presence, layers of intention, emotional currents drifting through corridors like weather systems. He really hoped that went away. The wall opposite him rippled, and Thessia stepped through as if privacy were a suggestion rather than a rule. She looked unchanged, immaculate even, though Cole could sense the strain beneath her composure, like stress fractures in crystal. They are arguing, she said. Cole sat up. I assume loudly. Yes, and with charts. Ah, nothing says rational governance like graphs during a crisis. She almost smiled. She moved closer, stopping just short of the bed, hands clasped behind her back. Up close, the differences were clearer. The subtle symmetry of her features, the way her long ears angled slightly when she focused, the faint biological resonance that made the air around her feel charged. They are offended, she continued, not by the act itself, by the meaning they assign to it. Of course they did, Cole said. People hate surprises unless they ordered them. You are remarkably calm, Thessia observed. Cole shrugged. I survived an assassination attempt, a public scandal, and a neurological makeover. At this point, I'm coasting. She studied him. You are afraid. Also true. Silence settled between them, but it wasn't empty. The pressure brushed his thoughts again, softer now like a question rather than an alarm. He exhaled slowly. They really said execution or marriage, he said. Yes. Is that common? For ritual violations of this magnitude? Yes. Good to know. He rubbed his face. I assume I don't get a vote. You do, she said, but it will not outweigh tradition. Cole snorted. Figures. I finally get involved in politics, and it's alien feudalism. She tilted her head. You find this amusing? I find it preferable to screaming, he replied, though I can switch if needed. Thessia stepped closer, close enough that the warmth inside him reacted, aligning with her presence like a tuning fork finding its match. She noticed. Of course she did. The pheromonal transfer did more than stabilize you, she said quietly. Your nervous system adapted. That sounds permanent. It may be. Fantastic, Cole muttered. Do I get superpowers? You perceive distress signals, she said, including mine. He looked up at her then, really looked. Not the queen, not the symbol, but the being underneath. The weight she carried pressed against him, now that he knew how to feel it. You've been alone in this, he said. Her jaw tightened. I rule billions. And no one's listening. The admission hung between them, heavy and undeniable. A tone resonated through the room, low and authoritative. The council's summons. Thessia straightened instantly, the queen locking back into place. They will decide soon, she said. Cole stood, smoothing his uniform out of habit. If they choose execution, do I get a last meal? That is not humorous. I cope loudly, remember? She met his gaze, something unguarded flickering there. If they choose marriage, he raised a hand. Let's address that sentence very carefully. Her lips curved despite herself. It would be ceremonial, political. Of course, he said. Nothing says romance like international crisis. You would be protected by becoming the most controversial spouse in the galaxy. Yes. Cole exhaled, feeling the palace hum around them, the unspoken fear, the suppressed signal that had drawn him into this mess in the first place. You kissed me to save my life, he said, not to trap me. That is correct. Then whatever happens next, he said, we do it honestly. Thessia nodded once. Agreed. The walls parted, revealing a corridor lined with council guards, their expressions carefully neutral and deeply unsettled. As Cole stepped forward beside Thessia, he felt it again. Not panic, not dread, but clarity. If this ended with a crown or a firing squad, at least he finally understood the signal. And for the first time, so did she. The council chamber was shaped like a lens, wide and curved, designed to focus attention whether one wanted it or not. Cole stood at its center beside Thessia, feeling like a misplaced footnote in a very expensive equation. Rows of counselors hovered slightly above the floor on anti-grav platforms, their long ears adorned with insignia that marked lineage, rank, and a fondness for ceremony. Cole resisted the urge to wave. The warmth inside him stirred again, reacting to the collective presence, to the undercurrent of restrained emotion pressing against the room like atmospheric pressure before a storm. He swallowed. So, he said quietly, leaning a fraction toward Thessia, no pressure, but I think I can feel everyone judging me simultaneously. They are, she murmured back. You are doing well. That's comforting. The eldest counselor floated forward, robes shifting like liquid shadow. Queen Thessia, they intoned, voice layered with harmonics that made Cole's teeth itch. You violated ritual protocol in full public view. Thessia did not bow. I acted to preserve life. By engaging in an intimacy reserved for binding alliances. Cole raised a finger. In my defense, I didn't know that at the time. Several counselors flicked their ears sharply. Thessia shot him a warning glance that he ignored with professional dedication. The human is not permitted to speak, the counselor said. Then you should stop making this about me, Cole replied pleasantly, because I'm pretty sure I'm the least confusing part of what happened. A ripple passed through the chamber. Discomfort. Interest. Thessia felt it too. He could sense her signal brushing his awareness, a mix of tension and something dangerously close to hope. The human reacted to a threat none of you perceived, Thessia said evenly. He shielded me without hesitation. A coincidence, another counselor snapped. No, Thessia said. A response. Cole frowned, the pressure sharpening as memory aligned with understanding. He took a slow breath. It's not coincidence, he said louder now. It's reception. The counselors turned as one. Explain, the eldest demanded. Cole glanced at Thessia. She hesitated, just a fraction, then nodded. For years, he said, your queen has been broadcasting a distress signal. Not intentionally, not loudly. The kind that gets ignored because it's always been there. A murmur rippled through the chamber. You accuse us of neglect, a counselor hissed. I accuse you of adaptation, Cole corrected. You evolved past hearing pain because it was inconvenient. Thessia closed her eyes briefly. The signal surged, no longer muted. Cole felt it fully now. Loneliness wrapped in duty, fear buried beneath control, a constant asking that had never been answered. I chose him, Thessia said softly, because he responded. Silence fell, heavy and absolute. He jokes, she continued. He deflects. He pretends ignorance. But he feels it. He always has. Cole shrugged. I thought it was stress. Turns out it was alien royalty. The eldest counselor studied him with new intensity. You claim compatibility. I claim empathy, Cole said, which, statistically speaking, humans overuse. Thessia stepped closer to him, the warmth aligning, stabilizing. I did not intend scandal, she said. I intended survival. And now, the counselor asked. Thessia lifted her chin. Now you must decide whether tradition outweighs truth. The chamber filled with whispered calculations, data projections blooming and collapsing. Cole waited, oddly calm. The signal inside him steadied, no longer screaming, just present. At last, the eldest spoke. The options remain, Cole sighed. I was afraid you'd say that. Execution, the counselor said, to erase the violation. Cole nodded. Classic. Or marriage, and they continued, to legitimize it. Cole looked at Thessia. She met his gaze, no command there, no expectation, just honesty. Well, he said softly, I've had worse career moves. A sound escaped her, laughter this time, unmistakable and sharp. The counselor stiffened, unsettled. This is not amusing, one snapped. No, Cole agreed. It's terrifying, but it's also the first time someone's actually listening. The eldest counselor studied them both, long ears angled in reluctant consideration. The decision will be rendered. As the chamber dimmed and the council withdrew, Cole exhaled, tension finally slipping its grip. Just so we're clear, he said, glancing sideways at Thessia, if this ends with me wearing a crown, I'm going to complain a lot. She inclined her head, warmth steady, signal no longer alone. I would expect nothing less. The first thing Cole learned about being unofficially engaged to an alien queen was that everyone suddenly wanted something from him. The second thing he learned was that none of them wanted to explain what that something actually was. They moved him into new quarters that were noticeably less prison and noticeably more historical statement. The walls displayed slow-moving constellations instead of calming skies, and the furniture appeared to have been designed by someone who believed posture was a moral obligation. Cole sat on the edge of the bed, boots still on, staring at a ceremonial sash draped neatly across a chair. I am not wearing that, he informed the room. The room did not argue, which worried him. The warmth inside his chest had changed again. It was no longer just Thessia's signal bleeding into him. It was layered now, complex, like standing in the middle of overlapping conversations. He could feel the palace adjusting to the idea of him, protocols recalibrating, attention reorienting. He wondered vaguely if buildings could develop opinions. A soft chime sounded, and the air shimmered. Thessia entered, flanked this time not by guards, but by hovering drones projecting legal glyphs in genetic probability trees. She stopped when she saw the sash. You don't have to wear it yet, she said. Cole eyed it suspiciously. That implies a future where I do. Yes. Good to know. I'll emotionally prepare. She moved closer, her presence steadying the noise in his head, like tuning one frequency among many. Up close, he could see fatigue she no longer bothered to hide. The signal pulsed faintly between them, no longer desperate, but far from resolved. They are stalling, she said. The council. Political suspense, Cole replied. Very on brand. They want to observe us, she continued. Interaction. Compatibility. He raised an eyebrow. Are we being evaluated like a science project? Yes. Fantastic. I always wanted to be peer-reviewed. Despite herself, Thessia smiled. It lingered longer than usual, and Cole felt something shift. Not romance, not obligation, but a shared recognition of absurdity. They walked together through the inner corridors of the palace, past walls that displayed centuries of rulings, past statues of queens who had never had to explain a human advisor to anyone. Cole could feel eyes on him, not hostile, but curious. The signal ebbed and flowed, brushing against him like static. You're amplifying it, he said quietly. I know, Thessia replied. I no longer need to suppress it. That's progress, and he said. Terrifying, but progress. They entered a chamber filled with neural resonance equipment, organic frameworks intertwined with human machinery hastily integrated after the incident. Cole stared at it. You built this fast, he said. You adapt quickly, she answered. So do we, when motivated. He stepped closer, placing a hand near one of the interfaces. The moment his skin approached, the system hummed, patterns stabilizing. Well, he muttered, guess I'm officially part of the infrastructure now. They spent hours there, not touching, not needing to. Thessia projected her signal openly, and Cole translated, not with words but with emotional mapping, converting distress into something measurable. The system pulsed, learning. Outside, factions maneuvered. Cole could feel them too, ambition sharp and angular, fear heavy and dense. He commented on it absently. There's someone angry 3 corridors east, he said, and someone planning a speech they think will save their career. Thessia glanced at him. You are improving. I would like to stop improving. That night, if time could be called night beneath an artificial sky, they sat across from each other in silence. Not awkward, not intimate, simply present. You don't have to do this, Cole said eventually, whatever this becomes. Thessia tilted her head. Neither do you. He considered that. True, but if I leave, your people go back to ignoring you. Yes. And if I stay, I might accidentally become a symbol. Already have, Cole sighed. I hate symbols. They never get context. She studied him then. Long ears angled forward, eyes searching. Why do you stay? He answered without humor this time. Because I heard you, and once you hear something like that, you don't unhear it. The signal steadied, warmer now, less lonely. Beyond the palace, negotiations hardened. Plans formed. Opposition sharpened its knives in subtle procedural ways. Cole felt it all, filtered through a nervous system that was no longer entirely his own. Marriage loomed as an idea, not yet a decree. Execution faded, but did not disappear. And somewhere between duty, adaptation, and shared silence, the galaxy waited to see whether listening would be enough. The final ceremony was nothing like the first. There were no banners heavy with symbolism, no harmonic music designed to make spines straighten. The plaza was quieter now, stripped of ornament, the air clear and honest in a way that made Cole vaguely nervous. Soldiers still stood guard, but their weapons were lowered, not ceremonial, not threatening, simply present. Cole stood beside Thessia at the center platform, hands folded behind his back, posture respectful without trying too hard. He had learned over the past days that trying too hard was the fastest way to make everyone uncomfortable. You're thinking loudly, Thessia murmured. Sorry, he replied. I'm wondering if history books include footnotes for people who really didn't plan any of this. They will, she said. They will call you deliberate. He snorted softly. That's slander. The resonance chamber behind them pulsed gently, alive with translated signal. Human-designed emotional matrices braided with alien neural frameworks, broadcasting Thessia's distress openly now, not as weakness, but as data, as truth. The crowd felt it. Cole could sense the shift ripple outward. Confusion at first, discomfort, then recognition. Counselors who had spent lifetimes learning not to feel suddenly stood exposed to something they had forgotten how to name. Soldiers shifted, ears angling forward, breath hitching. Thessia spoke, not amplified, not elevated. Her voice carried anyway. For generations, she said, we have mistaken endurance for strength. We have called silence stability. Cole felt the signal swell, no longer alone, no longer ignored. I broadcast pain, she continued, not because I am weak, but because I am alive. A counselor stepped forward, the eldest, expression altered by something unguarded. We heard it, they said quietly. We did not understand. Thessia inclined her head. Understanding is not immediate. Listening is. Cole felt something loosen inside his chest. The warmth steadied, no longer an emergency response but a shared frequency. He realized with a flicker of surprise that he no longer needed to joke to keep from shaking. That was new. The council's decree followed swiftly. No execution, no forced marriage. The ritual laws were amended, not erased, but expanded. A new category introduced, clumsily named and inelegantly phrased, but real. Designated listener. Cole blinked. I feel like that should come with a badge. Thessia's eyes flicked toward him, amused. It comes with responsibility. Of course it does. The crowd dispersed slowly, unsettled but intact. The palace felt different now, lighter, its emotional weather no longer stagnant. As the last counselor withdrew, Thessia exhaled, a sound that carried centuries with it. It is done, she said. Cole nodded. You're being heard. Yes. And me? She turned to face him fully, long ears angled in quiet focus. You are no longer reacting. You are choosing. He considered that. Thought back to the man who'd stumbled into secret meetings and deflected pressure with sarcasm like armor. Huh, he said. That's unsettling. She smiled, open and unguarded. They walked together through the palace one last time as crisis partners rather than potential scandals. The resonance faded gradually, no longer an alarm, just a background awareness. Cole knew it would never leave completely, and he was oddly fine with that. At the transport bay, he stopped. "So," he said, "no crown, no execution, just interspecies emotional infrastructure." "Yes. Honestly," he said, "this is the best possible outcome." Thessia extended her hand. Not a ritual, not a command. A choice? Cole took it without hesitation. "Stay," she said, "not an order. An invitation." He smiled, small and genuine. "I was planning on it." As the ship doors sealed and the palace lights dimmed into evening, Cole felt the galaxy settle. Not into peace, but into something more fragile and more real. Attention. And for the first time, the signal did not need to shout.